Well, we had John on. John, are you there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
My station manager came in and said, "I think you dropped him on," and I was like, "No."
That would be weird. So how's it going?
It is going good. We're in just starting hour number 7 or 8.
8.
8?
Hour number 8.
Wow.
Of playing They Might Be Giants. Have you heard of those guys? They're pretty good.
They are overhyped, overrated.
Stop it right there.
Terrific. Yep. Thank you so much for playing our songs.
It's been nothing but requests since 6 a.m. too. So they keep coming in. So
that's crazy.
And I have to say, we are getting a lot of requests from the new album Book. A ton of requests.
That's really cool. Yeah. No, that's great. We managed to. We've done. I mean, I suppose this is part of it. We've done like a fairly good press blitz, and the vibes have been really good. So we're pretty happy with the response.
I just got my box in the mail Wednesday night. So yesterday I had a chance to listen to the record for the first time, and then I'm actually sitting here with my unopened copy of Book in the studio. I got to say, it is a heavy book. Heavy
cool.
With the importance.
Are you going to do should you do your unboxing video?
Well, I guess I have saved this to open it up when you're on the air with us.
Nerd.
Right.
Yeah. But thank you so much for calling. How are things going with you?
Everything's good. I mean, under the circumstances, I guess we were already in the midst of a pandemic the last time I spoke with you guys.
Yep.
And it's sort of improved since then. A little bit, but it's I think I'm sure everybody's sort of amazed that it's become more like the status quo, right? Like this is our lives.
Well, and we're actually in Minnesota kind of on an uptick right now. So
yeah, no, I saw on the map of where the hot spots are. You guys are having an uptick. We are so far not having an uptick in New York City.
Okay.
But the Great Lakes, I guess, is, it's not very far away. So I actually bagged on a Thanksgiving dinner invitation because I'm paranoid.
Sure.
And I thought I'd just sit quietly with my wife and son and eat some turkey, and nobody's going to talk.
Sounds lovely.
Watch some football. Is that part of your tradition? Do you watch football on Thanksgiving?
No.
Okay.
We've literally never watched football. I remember it being on when I was a kid, and even then, I think nobody was paying attention.
More of a puppy bowl.
Yeah.
A family.
I don't even know what that is. What's a puppy bowl?
Oh, it's actually puppies playing like fake football, and they pretend like it's a real game. It's
really?
Pretty. If you like pets and stuff, it's pretty adorable because the cheerleaders are always kittens, and they've got hamsters usually that are the commentators. So it's pretty fun to watch.
That's crazy.
Especially if you're not a football fan.
It does sound like a dream.
Well, I'm so happy that you can join us again. We've got a ton of questions this year from listeners.
I love questions.
Good.
I love making up crazy fake answers to all the questions.
Excellent. Because you realize those become gospel in the fan community.
Well,
What if you had
keep everyone entertained? The real answers are often more boring, I think, is the problem.
If you had to guesstimate the amount of truthiness to your answers, would you say it's been about 80%?
I have no idea. Of course, I could make up a figure, and that would be not true.
That is very correct.
Very true.
Be part of the lore. It's 100% true. All of it, even mutually exclusive facts.
Okay.
None of it is true. Not a single word is true.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to doubt you.
Okay. Well, fire away. Let's get right into it.
I've actually, because I just mentioned to you that our next request coming up was something off of your Roman Songs release.
Yes.
And Carrie in Lansing, Michigan says that Roman Songs is delightful, and she's heard quite a bit about the lyrics, but she was curious if you could tell us a little bit more about writing the music, and how did the translation process make that more complicated?
Sure, yeah. I can actually give you the actual boring true answer, which is John Flansburgh and I had a friend growing up who has asked to be identified as Schoolmaster Smith on this project. So that's his stage name, in other words. And he gave John Flansburgh his very first guitar. This is true. He basically started Flansburgh on the guitar.
Nice.
And he was in a band himself already at that time. And he's still in the same band now. So he's been going considerably longer than we have.
Do you know the name of the band? We can certainly name check them.
The band is called The Nays, Nays.
Okay.
The Nays. But Schoolmaster Smith is also, and has been, a Latin teacher for his entire adult life. And he was already studying languages when we were in high school with him. And I had this idea for this project, and it's really just because I started pointlessly on the Latin course on Duolingo, which is really short and kind of not hard because they don't really teach you very much. So I spent part of this pandemic just like going through these Latin exercises, basically getting as far as, the present tense. They don't go any farther with your conjugations than that.
Okay.
And then you don't learn a ton of words. I'm not doing a very good testimonial for Duolingo here, but
we were actually just talking about it because Chantil has signed into Duolingo for how many days in a row?
I'm on a 708-day streak.
Whoa! Holy smokes!
Learning Dutch and Spanish and German.
That's awesome. Well, I find it really fun, but my experience with it has been that I still can't really speak a second language particularly well, but I just enjoy this weird ritual of trying to dig into. And I'm kind of a dilettante, not to cast aspersions, but on your work, I'm sure you're doing better than me, but I like the idea of learning a million different languages because it's really fun to start a new language.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what led me into Latin. Is just like, oh, look what they're offering a Latin course, and it's really short, and you learn a couple of like declensions and things, but it's really not too bad. But then I thought, oh, it'd be fun to write songs in a dead language. Like that's a crazy idea. And then I was looking around for somebody to help me, and I don't know why, but it took me a while to realize, I've known this guy since I was in high school, who is a Latin teacher, and he plays in a rock band, and he very generously did all the translating. I basically wrote simple lyrics in English, and he translated it into Latin, and then I took the Latin, and that's, in other words, this music was written after the translations were done so that I could sort of make it all make sense melodically.
Sure.
And then he also coached me in translation. He coached me in pronunciation is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, sure.
So he sent me recordings of him pronouncing the words, and that was enormously helpful. It was just a completely insane and fun project.
Well, a couple other people had some questions related to Duolingo that I'll insert here if that's all right.
Sure.
Quinn from Seattle wanted to know if you had any tips for continuing study in Duolingo for German.
Oh.
Or just
are you an expert in Duolingo, John?
Go ahead.
Sophie from London wanted to know if you had done any other courses or if you had run away from the scary green owl. Because Duolingo's mascot is an owl.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. The mascot is an owl, and it's a little bit cloying, actually, the owl. I would not describe it as scary. I think they're trying to make the owl into like your pal, and it's not a particularly attractive feature of Duolingo as far as I'm concerned. But I've spent I've been doing Duolingo for years and years, and it is a crazy addiction, and it's really just for fun. And I feel like I'm not that amazing on any other language, really. Particularly, I mean, I suppose Spanish is probably my best language, but I actually started studying that when I was, a kid. So I don't have any good advice. I mean, I think the main thing is actually, this is my best advice, is you shouldn't just work from Duolingo. And I think they even say that themselves, that it's good to have lots of other resources. And in particular, it's good to try and converse with somebody if you can.
Right.
Find a community of
folks
that are speaking that language and try to give it a try.
Right.
Yeah, and there's actually free ways to do that. There's a site called italki, I think is the name of it. A friend of mine does that, where you just hook up with other people who speak the language you're trying to learn, and then they're trying to learn whatever language you already speak. Mm-hmm. So you do sort of half and half. You communicate in each language and ideally assist one another, correct each other's mistakes and stuff like that.
Cool.
That sounds a little less scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and I've also done the thing of like actually getting teachers, and that's kind of like therapy, because basically you can try and converse with somebody. But I mean, the way I've kind of done it mostly is I just talk about whatever I feel like talking about. So it's really like having an incredibly inexpensive shrink, because you're basically groping around in a second language, but you're saying like, I'm really frustrated because I blah 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 or whatever, and they're like, yeah, that must be terrible.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that.
Tom, do you want to share a question?
Sure. I was looking here. There was a question from hi, John, by the way.
Hello.
A question from Brett in San Diego is wondering if you have a favorite Beatles song.
Ooh, boy! I mean, it's really hard to pick a favorite Beatles song. There's and it's one of those things where I almost feel like it's just unfair to single out a particular one, because part of what's exciting is the amazing range of stuff. I feel that way about a lot of things. Like trying to rank things or pick out a favorite is almost just it's too reductive. It's taking out what's actually really good and exciting about culture, which is the variety of it. Was
there one that just pops in your mind, and we're not going to hold you to it tomorrow?
Having said that, I somebody asked me that already, and I was like, well, Ticket to Ride, I guess, but I would never want to live in a world where there was only Ticket to Ride.
Sounds good. Do you have a question, Tom?
Yeah. Now, we had a couple questions submitted by Martha, who is 7 in Glasgow, Scotland, and her mom helped type the questions out. So I want to make sure that... and also she wants to mention that her favorite They Might Be Giants song is Meet the Elements.
Excellent.
So the questions that she has are, do you ever get nervous when you have to play or go on TV? And what is your favorite joke?
Oh, nice.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, the first question I can answer yes. Sometimes it can be really nerve-wracking. It's kind of unpredictable, but it depends on how everything is going, I guess. We used to do Conan O'Brien quite a lot, and that was a very very relaxed and fun environment because we eventually just kind of got to know the people, everybody working there, and it felt very friendly. But we've done a lot of other TV shows where it is almost designed to give you a heart attack, the way they put it together, and the kind of the general vibe. The Tonight Show was kind of like that. It was very cold, like the temperature on the set was cold, and then the feeling was like, this is an incredibly make or break situation, and that was nervous making.
Sure.
My favorite joke. I don't have a favorite joke, but I made up a joke, which sadly, what's the name of the girl in Glasgow? Martha. I think Martha won't get this joke. But I was sort of half awake recently, and I made up a joke as I was waking up, and I felt pretty good about it. I told it to Flansburgh, and he laughed.
That's a good thing.
Nobody else in the band thought it was funny. In fact, they all started saying, well, that's a good joke, but you should really change this part to a different part. And so I'm just going to throw this out there, and you guys don't have to laugh. I won't feel bad if you don't laugh, because not everybody likes this joke. Anyway, so they found the guy who murdered Ralph Cramden, and he's been convicted of homicide. Okay, that's it. I mean, Flansburgh was like, that is a top shelf joke. He was like, this is the best joke. And then Marty Beller, our drummer, was like, well, really, you should do it in the voice of Ralph Cramden, and that would be funnier. And and everyone else was like, yeah, maybe work on that. I don't know.
I would say it's probably one that the kids aren't going to get.
Yeah, no, Martha's not gonna appreciate it probably, but one day she might.
Hopefully she does come across the honeymooners.
Yeah, she'll learn more about our culture, and then she'll reflect back on my joke and perhaps smile.
love you even more for it. Well, we have a question from they just listed their name as Watchful Art in Virginia. Okay. Wanting to know if you could collaborate with any musician from any time period, who would you like to share the stage with?
Boy, I don't know. That's a really tough one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the brilliant collaboration between Franz Ferdinand and Sparks.
Yeah.
Well, I just watched the documentary on that, and so I actually really liked the music that they were doing, and so I have listened to more of it.
They're really good matching, and of course they had this brilliant idea, which was to write a song called "Collaborations Don't Work." Yeah. And it's a total. It's an exact splicing together of Franz Ferdinand and Sparks. So I don't. It's very hard to collect. John and I actually mostly work separately, and then we send materials back and forth over the internet. That's mostly how we collaborate, which is totally fun. And I've occasionally tried to write music to other people's lyrics, and sometimes it does feel like kind of forced and difficult, and I would love to, because I hate writing lyrics, so I'd love to find somebody to write lyrics who I felt comfortable with, in terms of their sensibility. But that's I've never even really written a lot of songs with John writing the lyrics. There's one or two in our catalog, but for some reason I find even that challenging. I don't have a great answer for you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That seems like an honest answer, too, by the way.
Yeah, so far.
I think you're batting 1,000.
I have not been BSing you guys too much.
Do you want to go, Tom?
You betcha. Someone going by the name Anonymous K, that may be a pseudonym, in North Carolina, asks or says, I never realized a brontosaurus has almost 2 planes of symmetry until I heard the song On Book. Do you have any ideas of how brontosauruses slept at night? Like, do you hope they slept? Have you ever seen pictures of giraffes sleeping? The song made me cry.
Wow. That's awesome. I almost have nothing to add. Such a beautiful statement. I don't know. What am I supposed to say? How do they sleep at night?
How do they sleep?
Yeah, how do they sleep at night knowing what they did? That's my question.
That's good. That's a good joke, John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
take that back to the band and see how they respond.
Better than the Ralph Cramden one.
That was good. I've never been able to write a joke. I've actually tried to. So I'm impressed that you even came up with a joke. So you're already getting kudos. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do. Oh. To get a tight 5.
Well, I make it sound hard. That's my specialty. Writing jokes.
This is really kind of off topic, but when you guys have like a tour coming up, because it seems naturally when I've seen you out in the world playing live shows, it seems like John Flansburgh is always like the guy who's kind of the one talking on the microphone in the band. He's the one that's gonna when it's quiet. He's the one that's gonna fill that quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
is that something that you're very happy that he does? Or do you ever kind of say, I wish sometime I was up there I came up with these great jokes. I'd like to share them.
Occasionally, I do talk a bit at every show, but I think John is sort of the MC, and he really likes to kind of, rope in the audience with sort of, he's the one kind of keeping the ball rolling, I guess, with the live show. I've done, as you may know, I've done solo shows, and I feel like, the whole feeling is very different. The vibe of the show that I was doing as a solo artist were very different, kind of more low-key and mostly about playing the songs, which was fine. I thought, actually, that was comfortable and cool, but it's a different thing when They Might Be Giants is playing, because John really, makes sure that it's a show.
Yeah, he's like like an old-fashioned showman at the circus, where he's he
gives him the razzle dazzle.
Exactly. Yeah, he doesn't like there to be dead air, and I really do appreciate that. I think that makes it fun and exciting for everybody. So that's great. It's great for me.
Cool.
Well, I think you're up next, Chantel.
Leslie Gower from Los Angeles wants to know, have you ever been creatively stifled? And what are your strategies for getting out of those times?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. I just try and do something different every time, and try and not get uptight about having the same, kind of ideas. Like, I think it's important to try and do something different, and then it also is a good way to get out of a rut, is to come up with some different, new aspect to your process, where you try out something unusual, I have, the thing is, unfortunately, fighting that is that there are a lot of ways that sort of feel comfortable and reliable to work. And for me, I almost always, I'm sure I've said this to you guys, almost always write the music first, and then try and come up with words that fit with some nice melodic idea that I've had. So that's my typical process. But of course, that can get boring if you do the same thing over and over again. So then you have to try and challenge yourself and And I think it's important to fail. I guess that's that's a thing, obviously, that gets repeated a lot about creativity. Is like you need to allow yourself to screw up and do a bad job, and then and the main thing is to just keep working, keep going, and not feel like you need to wait for inspiration to strike. So that, in a nutshell, those are my strategies for trying to get out of a rut. Which certainly, it doesn't get easier over the years. Like sometimes it feels like we've had all our good ideas, and we need need to come up with something dramatically different. But then, often a good idea appears to come out of nowhere, and that still seems to be the case. That's still kind of a thing that happens. That we get rescued by.
Have you ever, because you hear this about some songwriters, that they say, I woke up with the lyrics fully formed in my head and I just wrote them down in like 5 minutes. Has that ever happened to you?
Rare. That's not it has happened, but actually really just memorably with my Ralph Cramden joke.
So that'll be a song coming up soon, the Ralph Cramden joke?
Just a joke.
Okay.
Joke.
We have a question from Jake in North Jersey who asks, what is a book you'd want to see turned into a movie solely so you could write the score for it?
Oh, wow, that's a good question.
That's a good question, but it's an incredibly presumptuous question. It's an incredibly loaded question. It's like, so what kind of Dayglow wig are you hoping they'll make because you're going to wear that wig? And I'm like, you're way ahead of me. I don't know. Okay. Don't know the answer. Sorry.
Well, we've got another question from Nisa in Glasgow, who one says, can you please come play Scotland again when you can? And then she wants to know if you do the horn arrangements for the band.
I love that there are all these Glaswegians weighing in. That's seems like we're
this is a worldwide thing.
That's cool. Or it's just Scotland somehow. We're definitely going to play. We're going to come back to Scotland. We've been playing Edinburgh recently for some reason. There was a gig in Glasgow and it burned down, I think. Called I'm trying to remember now. There was the Garage, and then there was this old movie house called the ABC. And for some reason, something bad happened, and now we're playing in Edinburgh. I think one or both of those places is no longer in existence. But anyway, yes, we'll definitely come back.
Okay.
What was the other part of the question?
Do you do the horn arrangements for the band?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do. We also have some talented horn players who have done some amazing arrangements for us as well. But I'd say most of the time it's me. And I, obviously I'm like also playing my woodwinds on a lot of the tracks.
Okay.
Is that fun for you, or is it stressful?
I really got into the low clarinet sounds recently. In the last few years, I've got a contralto clarinet that's a super nice instrument, and I played that on a bunch of tracks in the last few albums.
Is that just just to be totally geeky? Is that just like a bigger coronet then? Is it one of those? Because it seems like the lower you get with those instruments, they just get huge.
Bigger, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the clarinet, the clarinet has a low pitch considering its length. It's because of this sort of physical quality it has, where it actually only has to be I think, half as long as other woodwinds to produce the same pitch, if I'm getting that right.
Okay.
So, for example, if a clarinet is like 2 feet long, it plays a note that's I can't remember now. It's a bunch lower than for example, if a flute or a saxophone were the same length, because of the way the wave is formed. So you get a nice deep sound already out of a regular clarinet, and then with these instruments, they go crazy low. The contralto has an incredibly deep sound, and there's one called the contrabass, which is actually so deep that it's just too deep as far as I'm concerned. I actually got one and I played it, and it was just too low for me. but I have a wooden contralto, and I also have a metal contralto, and I brought the metal contralto out on the road for the last bunch of tours that we did, and that was really fun. So I'm probably gonna at some point bring that out again.
Okay.
Along those lines, there was another question here. Are there any instruments you'd love to learn or acquire but haven't been able to yet?
Oh yeah, well I'm always kind of checking stuff out, and I mentioned the thing earlier about how I'm kind of a dilettante. So I occasionally will look at what were you talking about recently? My wife and I were talking about the it was the viola da gamba, which apparently is had a resurgence of interest recently. It's what it is. It's like a fretted cello. It's like how a cello just has a fingerboard,
just the neck,
but you have to put your finger in the exact right place to get the pitch, and so you obviously need a good ear to play it. Whereas viola da gamba has frets like a guitar, so it's, I think, a little bit easier to play, and it's used in a lot of ancient music, like Renaissance and Baroque music. So we were talking about it, and I was like, boy, I should really learn that. And then I just realized, that's just ridiculous, and I should definitely not get a viola da gamba.
But with Christmas coming up and anybody's listeing, that's at the top of John's Christmas list.
Save your money. Donate to a charity instead of getting me that. I'm somebody should learn the viola da gamba. It's a great instrument, and it plays kind of cool, has a kind of cool old sound. So I go on, the site, there's a site called Reverb where you can buy used instruments. And so I looked at pictures of the viola da gamba, but I restrained myself and didn't get one.
I've never heard of it, and I grew up playing in the orchestra, so I've never even heard of that. Yeah. Well, I played the bass, and so when you first start learning, they put little stickers on the side, so you know where you should be putting your hands, and then after a while it's just muscle memory, so you just know where it goes.
Right, and when you use your ears, I guess you hear the sound.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know you played string instruments.
Well, that's the problem. I kind of don't. Probably dumb of me to start.
Nope, not at all.
No, it would be a whole new thing. You were saying that would help you get out of a slump.
Right.
Well,
good point.
And let us know if you have to go, because we have so many questions. So if you're getting tired of questions,
I'm
let us know.
What time is it now? I think we've basically got an hour here.
Okay.
It's 2:30 in New York right now, so I'm going to be here available unless you get sick of me. I won't be able to speak with you until 3:00.
Okay.
And if you want to stop and play some music or something, that's fine.
Nope. I'd rather chat with you. We've got hours to play more music.
Although we should get a request from you, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you have a request that you'd like to hear today?
Boy, I'm just so unprepared for all your left field questions.
Well, you can think about it.
Yeah. Ponder that in your heart.
Because you've got some time.
Yeah.
And maybe a question will make you think of something.
You know what we should do next year? Why don't you email me some questions ahead of time, and then I can prepare a little better, because I always feel kind of like, I have no idea. I don't.
It's a pop quiz. No stress.
Oh
no, you're doing great.
Oh yeah.
That's fine. I can't. I don't know what to. Lance would be better at making requests. I mean, I'm assuming it'd be something They Might Be Giants. Actually, that
we actually had somebody share a story earlier that they first heard about They Might Be Giants when they were at a bar in New York, and they were standing in front of the jukebox, and they were picking out music, and somebody came up behind them and said, play the Giants, and it was John Flansburgh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
And I would love to have a local area where I could go that They Might Be Giants was on the jukebox.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Still, and not one of the electronic jukeboxes.
Right.
Like the actual 45s.
For real.
The thing that plays the record. Yeah, exactly. That would be good. That would be good.
Do you have a question, Chet?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Sam from Livonia, Michigan wanted to know if you remember the very first song you ever wrote that made you realize that you really knew how to write songs.
Well, I don't know. I think it was kind of a gradual process, actually. I remember mainly getting interested in just playing instruments and kind of making up little tunes and not really so much thinking in terms of songwriting. I think I didn't start out thinking of myself as a songwriter. And that was more of a gradual thing. I always liked music, but I didn't right away think in terms of being a songwriter. So I think it was very gradual, is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Theo in Alabama, who says, as an autistic person, your lyrics really resonate with me in the way I communicate, and I know many others on the autism spectrum feel the same way. Were you aware of this phenomenon, and do you have any thoughts on it?
That's nice. I mean, I'm kind of hesitant to say anything like authoritative, or sounding about autism, because I'm not at all an expert on that topic, and I know that the received ideas have been sort of shifting around about, I mean, at some point there was this notion, I guess, that there's still people still talk in terms of a spectrum. Am I up to date on that?
Yes.
That the idea that there's a spectrum of autistic to what's the expression, neurotypical. So people range from one thing to the other, and maybe everybody has some degree of that somewhere. Everybody exists somewhere on that spectrum. I think that's still considered. That's still the courant notion, but I don't know. Anyway, it's a fascinating topic. It's obviously it's something that exists completely separately from other mental capacities, right? So there's autism, and then there's completely separately from that is sort of how good you are at other things to do with mental activities. I'm totally interested in the topic, but I feel sort of ignorant, and I'm definitely not an expert on it. But it seems like I wish I had something intelligent to say about it. I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think a lot of people identify, with one aspect or another of autism, and it's clearly it's kind of exploded as a field of study, right? So yeah, I mean, unfortunately I feel like I need to know more about it, I suppose. But I'm glad to hear that somebody who has been diagnosed with autism feels like there's something about our music that appeals to them in particular. That's good.
So somebody, not somebody, I have a name here. Where is it? Jonathan in Hutchinson, Minnesota, said that they just listened to an interview where Flansburgh admitted to collecting taxidermy animals, and they want to know if you have any interesting collections.
Yeah, well, this is I'm actually standing in a room with a bunch of old cameras right now. I used to have a bigger collection, and it got sort of to be too much, so I got rid of most of them. But I have a lot of cameras from I would say mostly from the mid 20th century, some a little older and some a little more recent than that. But I just really like cameras, and I collect them in order to use them. So I can buy film online, mostly 35 millimeter, and I just like messing around with these old cameras.
Do you have a favorite camera that you like to use?
I would say I have a few that I particularly like. One is this metal camera from the 30s called the Univex Mercury, and it has a shutter that's a metal wheel that spins around. Instead of like almost every camera shutter is like a little iris that pops open or a thing that swings out of the way. But this is actually a wheel, and it's a very accurate, kind of beautifully designed thing that no one else has ever really imitated. So that's a cool one, the Univex Mercury.
I think Tim just looked it up, and he's like going, "Oh my God!"
It's a beautiful looking camera.
Exactly. It's really cool looking, and I think that's a big part of why I like cameras. Is they do something. They're really simple in a way because they're doing this functional thing that ideally, the camera actually works and does a good job. But they also look really nice while they're doing their job.
What was the other one that you like?
Well, I have another one I use a lot is a stereo realist, which was really popular in the 1950s, and it takes 3D pictures. It takes two different pictures out of two different lenses, and then you put 35 millimeter film through it, and if it's transparency, then you get two images that you can mount on a slide and project or look at through a little viewer thing. Like they make little cheap plastic viewers that you can use, and it's really looks really cool and completely different from the other kinds of photography. It's a very beautiful kind of 3D photography, and the stereo realist was so popular in the 50s that Flansburgh's parents had hired a photographer to photograph their wedding, and he did it with a stereo realist. So I've never seen them, but he has a huge collection of his parents' wedding photos in 3D.
Wow. That's amazing.
And the other thing is, if you look online, there's a great picture of Eisenhower when I think he was still a general before he was president, and he's taking pictures with his stereo realist, looking very, very enthusiastic.
Well, because I did open up my book and I just peeked at one page. But in a book of photos, would you ever put out a book of your photos?
I don't think my photos are particularly book worthy. I think they're really interesting and fun. Again, it's sort of like Duolingo, like. It's really fun and interesting, but I like being an amateur. I think that's a kind of a nice position to be in, because you sort of feel like there's not much pressure to do professional quality work. You can just enjoy what you're doing and show it to your friends, and it kind of exists on that level. And I think that's pretty good. I think that amateur is an underrated occupation.
Well, and I think that when you're taking photos, it's almost like it's another way to communicate, like, this is what caught my eye. So it'd be like an opportunity for folks to kind of get a visual perspective from you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have to have these beautiful photos necessarily.
Right, sure. Absolutely, yeah. No, that's certainly there's a level on which photography is the most popular thing for people who take pictures to do is just to share casual, point and shoot pictures with their friends, and so that is a very, very normal thing. But I feel like my thing sort of exists in the middle because it's much fussier than just taking pictures with your phone, because it involves I have a bathroom that I can convert into a dark room, and so there's more fussing around involved in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm taking pictures and then I'm developing the film and then possibly printing out pictures or scanning them or whatever, and so there's more tinkering involved.
Sure, yeah, you're more the way it used to be done before.
Yes,
all the high tech stuff. Yeah. Well, do you have a question, Tom?
Sure. Yeah. There was a question from a pretty new fan of yours, Thomas from Farmingdale, New Jersey. Says, in the short 2 years I've been listening to you guys, I've been positively enamored. How have you guys been able to keep things fresh for so long?
Yeah, I don't know. That's another one of those impossible questions. We obviously are keenly interested in not, sucking.
Well, you're doing great.
And I know everybody feels that. Like, there's not a musician in the world who wants to be crappy. But all I can say is that's been at the forefront for us, and I feel supremely lucky that we get to keep doing this and that people are still interested in it, because there's no guarantee. It's also, there's no objective reality. Like, somebody probably thinks we checked out long ago, I could probably guarantee that there's people who liked the stuff we did in the 1980s who feel like we stopped being any good after that.
I've never run into them.
Well, but
it takes all kinds.
Yeah. So, I think it's really more just about perseverance. Like, if you keep going, then at least one person believes in what you're doing, which is yourself. And then hopefully you can get other people hoodwinked into going along with it.
By the way, I see that because I'm looking through the lists that we have, and folks can still access for questions. And we got a follow-up from Martha, the 7-year-old's mom, saying
excellent.
that she was so delighted to hear you answer her questions, and that the joke was a little bit beyond her, but she's going to help explain it to her in a few years.
That's awesome. That's great.
And that you made her day. So that's fun to hear.
Very good.
Hear that. All right, Chantel, you're up.
Elizabeth in Baton Rouge, Louisiana says, any plans to make another Here Comes album? My kids and I listen to Here Comes Science every night at bedtime since it came out, and I still notice new things when I watch it, like the cat on Why Does the Sun Shine playing the theremin.
Yeah, no, that was it was really a fun project. The whole scene has shifted as far as our relationship to Disney, because the guy who was running the record company was our advocate there, and he's no longer with Disney Sound, the guy who was the president. And so really the whole relationship was this sort of key man situation for us where his name was David Agnew, still is David Agnew, and he was stuck his neck out for us at Disney, and kind of allowed us to do whatever we wanted. So that was the basis for that whole series of DVDs that we made, and it was a really good experience. But I don't think that particular franchise can be restarted now. But we're always up for new things, and who knows what lies in the future. The point is, I guess, that we're not affiliated with Disney anymore, and the sort of, in a way, I guess, like our situation with Elektra was just that the people there who we had a special relationship to had moved on to other jobs, so that it was no longer a kind of a good personal relationship with the record company anymore, because the people that we knew and felt sort of like we were in a good relationship with had moved on, and this unfortunately is what happens sometimes. That's a record company is people, so we're still obviously doing this, and there's plenty of other opportunities out there.
Well, we'll just cherish the Here Comes albums that we have. I know that Tom and I really enjoy listening to all of them with our granddaughters, Lily and Harper. That's
terrific. Yeah.
Well, Tim gets to ask our favorite question.
What are you reading right now, John?
I actually knew you were going to ask me that. That's the only question I was ready for.
It's the only one you were ready for.
Because we're music and book geeks.
Yeah. Of course you are. So this year, since I spoke to you, I think I forgot to mention a book that I was really into. We did speak last year, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'd already started this, and I forgot to talk about it, which is when the pandemic had started, a lot of people were excited about reading pandemic-related books, and there was sort of like there were a number of popular ones, like The Plague by Albert Camus, and what was the other one? Anyway, so there was particular books the Decameron by Boccaccio, which is about people escaping a plague.
Oh yeah.
So somebody pointed me to this book by Jose Saramago, and he's I think he's a Portuguese writer, I think, or Spanish, I forget which. Anyway, he wrote a book called Blindness, which I read in English, and that was great. Really amazing book, and it's about people mysteriously all going blind. Like basically everyone in the world goes blind because of some infectious disease, and then it just describes what happens to the society, and it was really good. So I that one kind of stuck with me. And then I also read, do you know Jill Lepore is a journalist. I think she writes for the New Yorker, and she writes about politics and history, and she wrote a book called These Truths, which is kind of just a survey of the United States history and politics. Whoops. Still there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Something's beeping here. All right.
You started talking politics, and there time to record.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Jill Lepore, These Truths. I have to do something about this. I see what's going on. Okay, you guys still there?
Yep. And we don't hear it either on our end. So
okay, all right. Sorry. So Jill Lepore. There's a book by a guy named Yuval Noah Harari that was very popular few years ago called Sapiens. That one, I haven't finished that one, but that's on my desk, and it's about human beings. It's a book about sort of the evolution of humans as distinct from other animals and what makes humans, and in particular, not just humans, but Homo sapiens, which are the particular flavor of human that learned how to make tools and had special linguistic abilities that distinguish them from the Neanderthals and everybody else, apparently. So he says, and so that's what that book is about. And it was a big book, and it's sort of a controversial book, I guess. Like, not everybody agrees with what this guy's saying, so you kind of read it and consider it in that context. Okay. And finally, I'm reading a book which is called The Comedians. I'm forgetting the name of the author of The Comedians. Cliff Nesteroff.
He was on a broadcast with the Mads, Trace and Frank from Mystery Science Theater 3000, and he was talking about that. It sounds very interesting. Yeah,
it's great. It's just mostly about the last 100 years of comedy, and sort of the whole dynamic of the stand-up comic and how that evolved, and it's about showbiz too. So it talks about TV and you know, the different ways that comedians, and the sort of the rise and fall of different things, like the Comedy Club, which is kind of this thing that was invented, you know, I guess in the 70s is when it kind of took off, and then the involvement of, like, you know, the mob and stuff like that. So it's a really good sort of, there's a whole lot of, you know, tentacles of culture that expand outward with this topic.
Oh, that's one I want to read, because I actually saw that somewhere. I love reading about just how comedians, I just love anything about comedians and how they do what they do. It's just fascinating to read.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. We're coming up on the top of the hour, which means we're done drilling you with questions.
You know what the music means. Well, this has been a delight once again, and I'm so flattered that you guys do this every year. And yes, thank you again.
Yeah, and all of us are going to see you when you come to the Twin Cities. We all still have our tickets from all of the date changes and et cetera. But
that's great.
Can't wait for that to get up and running again and get to see, because I'd heard recently, and I don't know if this is the case, I should almost ask you, is it true that not only, because originally these were going to be for the Flood anniversary shows, so you're going to be doing Flood, but I've also heard that now you might be incorporating some mink car into that as well?
Well, yeah. We haven't really hammered out a set now. We were actually, you know, we'd already kind of begun this tour, and it was a Flood anniversary tour, but weirdly, there are other anniversaries coming up. Apparently, like, we are about to turn 40 as a band.
Wow.
Somebody was pointing out, maybe we should do your 40th anniversary. And I was saying, well, you know, in a way, this is sort of like if we do eventually tour, which looks very likely now, even though we keep stalling and postponing everything. It's going to be the 2020 tour, like the same way that Japan had the 2020 Olympics. You know? Like, we're just going to pretend that it's still then. So yeah, I think we'll be playing a lot of Flood, and I think we'd already planned on digging out a lot of old Make Car songs, and of course now we've got a new album out, so we'll be playing that as well.
Maybe the best solution is to, and maybe do it in Minnesota, but I don't know, maybe somewhere that might be easier for you. But since I just saw that Sparks documentary, when Sparks did all, was it 29 or 30 of their albums in 29 nights?
Man.
Maybe just run through every album.
We could. We've done a lot of album shows. That's been a thing we've been doing for years and years now. And we've probably done, I don't know if we've done half of our albums already as live shows. Of course, the version of the album show that we do is normally just sort of features a particular album, and then we, of course, play a lot of other material as well, because the album can't be an entire show. It's not long enough. But we've done factory showroom shows. We've done mink car shows. And we've certainly done the first, second, and third albums as, specialty shows. And I can barely remember those shows, but I know that we did do them. We'll probably do more of that kind of thing.
To be honest, you just being on the stage is good enough for us. You can do whatever makes you guys happy. Bring out that ultra bass, contrabass, cornet, and just go to town, and we'll be happy.
Good. Okay.
Then you can do it. Is this too low? Have everybody raise their hands. Is this too low for you? Well, thank you so much, John. Take care. Have a great holidays, too, with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. And we'll see you in, I believe it's April when you're coming to Minnesota. So we'll see you soon.
It's coming. It'll be here sooner than you think.
That's right.
Thanks again, you guys.
All right.
Thanks,
thank you
so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, bye now.